What's up, everybody? It's Jared from Capture the Magic, and given we are just a week away from the recording of this video before Epic Universe opens, so a lot of people are obviously excited about this theme park, but there are some issues that need to get resolved before this park opens, as we've been to it twice now. And actually a subscriber of the channel sent this article over, so thank you, Tony, for sending this over. And it is 7 things that Comcast's Epic Universe needs to fix before May 22nd. So I figured let's go through this article and see if I agree or disagree with this, and just see, overall kind of give an idea of some things that, Epic Universe needs to get fixed before this park is officially open on May 22nd. So they sprang for 3 days of previews in late April, including the first of the weather delays for paying guests. There are a lot of things Epic Universe needs to fix ahead of its official opening that is less than 2 weeks away at the time of this writing here. So the first one here is the Ministry of Magic tragic virtual lines. Since it's not fair to boil down a next-gen theme park to 11 rides it features, there's also a pair of jaw-dropping live shows, a meet and greet with an interactive animatronic dragon, and 4 immersive portals that feed into the gorgeous Constellation Park core. That would be Celestial Park. Comcast claims Epic Universe offers 50 attractions, but perhaps its most anticipated experience remains its buggiest offering. Harry Potter and the Ministry of Magic, I think he means Battle of the Ministry, raises the bar with a slick ride vehicles that move in all directions through a world that seamlessly blends enormous projections with lifelike audio animatronics. So it's been rarely available, and when it has been running, it's with a limited hourly throughput, with just a handful of the available vehicles cycling through the experience. And we've talked about before that one of the main issues with this is they're not able to have all of the ride vehicles running at the same time that they want. I believe they want 16 to 17, or it can run 16 to 17 or so ride vehicles. And currently they've only been able to run maybe 4 or 5 at a time, sometimes even less than that. So that is part of the issue with this ride. Universal has turned to a flawed virtual line system as the only way to grab one of the handful of ride opportunities. Disney World's virtual queue platform isn't currently active on any attraction, but in the past, access has been limited to 1 daily ride per guest. Ministry of Magic has no limits on re-rides, thinning the already slim percentage of guests that score access. That I completely agree with. We've talked about in other videos, the virtual line system doesn't run great. That app needs a lot of work, whether it's a server issue or the way the app is coded, and that's just has nothing to do with the ride itself. Obviously, that ride needs to get its ride capacity up and get the issues fixed with that, which they will eventually. I mean, Rise of the Resistance is a great example of a complex ride that had issues when it first opened, and Disney has worked through that into now where it is just in a standby mode. And for the most part, it's pretty reliable, especially compared to how it was when it first opened. But this virtual line system is not a great system currently as it stands. Universal has gone with 3 drops with much smaller allotments, along with intermittent spurts of availability that trickle out during the day. Too many people are spending their time buried in the app, unable to enjoy everything that Comcast has built around them, and they're still not likely to snag a spot. This is the loudest of many common complaints when it comes to Epic Universe. I mean, I would say that is the biggest complaint, and I completely agree. I don't like being buried in an app and just added stress of that, of trying to get on an attraction that you want to ride. And the fact that they currently have it set up where you can literally, people could ride this ride multiple times if they're able to get one. And so they need to set this system up, where it works better, having more availability, but also if you've already ridden it, you shouldn't be able to get another virtual line reservation for it. I think that would help this out quite a bit, but currently they don't have that. So again, this app needs a lot of refining, I suppose you could say, in terms of how it operates. But to be fair, Disney's had issues as well when it first started out, and they ironed out those kinks really well over time. So I think Universal will get there. It's just, will they get there before the park opens? If I was betting, I would not bet on that necessarily. The entire attraction will close on Saturday for a week if it doesn't emerge next weekend, at least much closer to full capacity. And with a solution to its virtual line buzzkill, the grand opening headlines won't be pretty. Again, I have said this is the Achilles heel potentially of this park, is Battle of the Ministry, virtual line, and everything around that. Second point here is food for thought. Epic Universe has been largely getting high marks for its food, but some stomachs are still rumbling. Wait times for orders are growing as park crowds get larger, but that will inevitably get better over time. The problem right now is that the menus are aiming high for a themed experience, and that's going to be a problem if you have a picky eater in tow. After spending 3 days in previews and a pair of nights at the attached Grand Helios Hotel, I had sampled several venues at the property. Everything looked great, but the push to make everything Instagrammable has its setbacks. The eclectic ingredient combinations on a plate increases the veto power for finicky palates, making matters worse. As of late April, at least, you still can't customize mobile orders to make a more basic meal. Even when you find a human to place an order with, the options are surprisingly limited. I won't complain about a $29 burger at the hotel's lobby restaurant. Burgers have a limit. I've talked about with pizza before. Burgers also have a limit. And I'm not going to pay $30 for a burger. I'm just not going to do that. I get the spoils of victory that Comcast earns with a captive audience. However, selling a single large breadstick in the shape of a wooden steak with a small container of garlic butter for $12 is probably the scariest thing about Dark Universe. I've said it before. Universal sometimes they get kind of aggressive with some of their pricing. The Shrek pretzel that's over in DreamWorks Lane, I believe that one is like $12 or $13. Like, it's very expensive for a pretzel. And, I've said it many times, and you can definitely knock Disney for their price hikes and the things that they have done. But one thing Disney actually is pretty reasonable on is their food prices overall, even though those have risen over the years as well, compared to many times Universal and like places like SeaWorld and things. Disney's snack prices and their food prices aren't really bad. Actually, they're many times on the lower end when it comes to theme parks. And Universal's usually pretty much in line with Disney, but some things they do get a little high on. The garlic steak would be one of them, and some, depending on the restaurants you're eating at here. So some of this stuff, though, is expected during a preview. Like, they are still training team members to, help with, obviously the capacity that this park is going to have and the demand for it. So I do know they're currently still hiring people and adding them to this park. But that is obviously something like long lines at some of these places, like the mac and cheese cone that they have, which has become a really big hit, which we didn't actually get to try yet. But that one has had a lot of demand. They added it to another restaurant as well. So I think a lot of this stuff is them also trying to feel out the demand here, where people are really gravitating to, what kind of becomes viral in some ways. So some of it you can excuse a little bit for previews, but overall, he's not wrong about $12 for basically garlic bread. It is good, but some of this stuff can get a little pricey that Universal does offer. The third point here, something with the app apologetic. I don't know what he's trying to say here. And this point, he kind of goes on about the app again, which we kind of already talked about. But, the overall, I do think the app can be improved upon for a better guest experience, undoubtedly. So I don't know if that needs a second point entirely, but yeah, I agree about the app. Fourth one is one step at a time, because I should probably point out that there are a lot of stairs to navigate throughout the park. Super Nintendo World is a MC Escher drawing. The other portals don't have stairwells to tackle until you get on most of the available rides. If you have mobility issues, there are several elevators to get around. You may have as many as 4 elevator rides to complete a ride experience. I can't imagine how long those lines will be once the park goes from entertaining thousands of guests to tens of thousands of guests. Either way, your day will have lots of ups and downs at Epic Universe. That is true. Super Nintendo World especially it's a multi-level land there, so you have stairs. And if you have an ECV or a stroller, which we ended up having both, we had a stroller, and then my mother-in-law had an ECV. So to go up and down, you have to use the elevators there. So that adds a kind of becomes cumbersome in that land. Especially if you got kids going up and down stuff and things like that. So there's lots of stairs there. There's lots of stairs. And if you got Monsters Unchained, that has some stairs to navigate. Yoshi's Adventure has some stairs. So does Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge. So there are lots of stairs in this park kind of overall. So I think that is a legitimate thing to know going in. Obviously, that's not something you can fix with this park. That is just going to be how it is with this, but it's something to know. And I would say, like, for me personally, stairs aren't going to bother me, but I don't have mobility issues. So if you do have some mobility issues, that is something to definitely think about with this park, is kind of accessing those, and kind of especially Super Nintendo World, and how to really, navigate that. It says, number 5, summer cookout. I've lived in Florida for most of my life, but even I felt the park was uncomfortably hot in my time there. The hub and spoke layout means you will spend a lot of time in Celestial Park. He calls it Constellation Park, but it is Celestial Park, going from one portal to the other, and the lack of natural or artificial shade is worse than you will find in the area's other theme parks. This was in April. He goes, I can't imagine how bad things will get in the summer. Says the good news for Comcast shareholders like me is that Epic Universe is going to make a lot of money keeping folks hydrated or selling them umbrellas, sunscreen, and aloe vera gel. The bad news is that a lot of people may wind up leaving early until it cracks the code to keep Celestial Park from being a clay oven. I mean, that is a legitimate criticism. Not a lot of shade in this park. I think there will be over time as those trees grow up more. But currently speaking, in Celestial Park, in middle of the day, there's not much shade at all. You will bake out there if you are there. So, Florida is hot in the summer, and you're not going to find much shade in here, at least on the outdoor parts. But, you can, I always tell people dip into AC when you can if you're going to be in a park all day. So there are shops you can dip into. There's restaurants you can just go sit down at. You don't even have to order anything. Obviously, if people do that en masse, they may have to make changes to that. But overall, he's not wrong. It is a very hot middle of the park, and there's not a ton of shade in some of these lands either. So I would say that is a big thing to, I guess you could say, criticism or thing to know about this park, is you're not going to find a ton of shade at this time with this park. But I do think over time that will improve. But if you're going this summer, definitely something to keep in mind. A hat that maybe blocks out the sun, maybe an umbrella, plenty of water, things like that, I think will help with that. But obviously it doesn't change the fact that it can get really uncomfortable just being in the sun there and having beat down on you. He goes, number 6, weather or not. My most productive day was April 25th, which I added at the last minute after seeing weak ticket sales because the park was closing 3 hours early for a media event. We managed to ride all but 2 rides, and that included the one and only time we got to experience the Ministry of Magic in my time there. Our final day was April 28th, a historic day since it was the first weather delay that the park experienced since it started charging for previews 11 days earlier. It didn't rain much, but lightning in the area kept most of the rides closed for more than 2 hours in the early evening. Just 4 of the 11 rides remained open during a weather delay, and you had to be lucky enough to score a virtual line for one of them for that time. This is Florida. Afternoon thunderstorms are the default setting over the peak summer travel season. Why would a park that aspires to one day wrestle the global turnstile click down from Disney World's Magic Kingdom not weatherproof more of its attractions? I do think that's a legitimate criticism of when, it's not an if, but when it rains, and these rides go down, what does that look like? And obviously there's not going to be a lot of rides open because there is a lot of outdoor attractions here. That is something that definitely, obviously when this park is fully operational, see what that looks like. But obviously if you have less attractions open, the wait times there are really going to balloon and could cause, very high wait times. I think a lot of people may end up getting something to eat or go inside or maybe leave the park and come back later. But that is definitely something about this park I would say is a weak point, is the amount of outdoor attractions. If it's not raining, and they're running optimally, that's a different scenario. But once it does rain, how quickly do they come back open? Things like that I do think are legitimate, concerns and criticisms of this park. He says, number 7, riding the storm out. There is a lot to enjoy at Epic Universe outside of the 11 rides. However, that number will have to increase if it wants to grow its capacity without satisfying guest satisfaction. Even if they all somehow are running consistently by May 22nd, a few of them can only entertain hundreds of guests an hour. The 4-seater Donkey Kong-themed Minecart Madness coaster had a 4-hour posted wait one morning earlier this week, and that was only when it was accessible to guests staying at Universal-owned hotels as an early entry perk. I love Minecart Madness, but that has been a concern about this ride ever since, seeing how that operated over in Japan. It doesn't have a large, ride capacity, and it doesn't move a lot of people through it per hour, which is why they don't have express on this. And if you want to ride this, and it also at this point has gone down quite a bit, as it's not your typical coaster. It's a kind of a different version with that arm that kind of holds you over the false track above. So that is definitely something. I mean, if you want to ride this, you're probably going to have to wait a while to ride this, and it is going to be a ride that has a lot of demand because it is a family coaster and it's Nintendo. So that, again, that is a legitimate concern. The park will need to ramp out the rollout of all-weather, high-capacity rides and find other high-volume uses for Celestial Park. He keeps messing that up. Celestial Park. A top priority has to be the Harry Potter portal, where there is no ride currently available unless you have a virtual line for Battle at the Ministry. It can't skimp on quality here. There's a wide gap currently between its signature rides and everything else. I don't know about, I think every park there's going to be a gap between your top end attractions and some of the other things. So, and not every single ride in this park is going to be a Battle at the Ministry or Monsters Unchained, level of ride. I mean, A, that's unrealistic, and B, that's not how theme parks work. So they're trying to have different offerings for different age groups and different types of attractions. 11 attractions is currently more than, say, Animal Kingdom, and that park has been around for 20 plus years. But given what Universal wants this park to be, which is their Magic Kingdom, they are going to need more attractions. And I am hearing very strong rumors, and I'm actually trying to look into finding more details on this, that they are going to be announcing potentially some additions to Epic Universe very soon. So I think that sooner rather than later, they are going to add things to this park. As I have said, I think they're going to be very aggressive in this next decade. And I think that not only means adding things to the existing parks, but also Epic Universe, as obviously I think they're going to want to ride a lot of that momentum of this park and keep adding things to this. So I think this park is a good foundation. They need and will add more things to it, which will help this park overall as time goes on. I think as well. Epic Universe will be great one day. Theme park enthusiasts and Comcast investors deserve as much. Right now, there seem to be too many checklist items to check off in the next dozen days for a park that is already opening 2 years late. I hope I'm especially wrong. Well, I would say it's opening later than they anticipated because COVID delayed stuff, which you could say, that happened. Although they picked up construction rather quick after COVID. But, I mean, some of these things are park critiques that you're not going to fix before this park opens. I mean, talking about the attractions that go down during a rainstorm, you're not going to be able to do anything about that at this point. The app, and I agree, the app is definitely something. The lack of shade, that's not anything you're going to be able to fix for the most part. You can add some shade structures around, which they could do, but overall, like around the fountain, you're not going to be able to do anything about that with having a fountain out there. Like the steps, like some of these things are just how this park is laid out. So kind of toward the end, like, I disagree. I think this park is great. I love this theme park. I think it definitely has, like he said, some of the issues here are justifiable, and I agree. As any theme park is going to have some things about them that are negatives. But again, I think for a foundation of a park that they will add to, you take what they've done with the Wizarding World and basically applied it to a brand new theme park. I think it's very well done. And I think it is in its own right a very solid park to start out with, a brand new park, and just adding more things to this is going to flesh out this park more. So I'm not as critical as him about this. Obviously people are going to have their opinions about the park in general. I think in terms of theming, the rides that they have to offer, the technology, the immersiveness of it, like I think it is a fantastic park. Has a lot. I love the Celestial Park element of it, especially at night, being able to just enjoy a fountain and just kind of have a place in a theme park to relax. I think that is something that many theme parks have gotten rid of over the years that are missing, and I think it adds an element to a park that a lot of people do enjoy, even though it's not attraction based. It's just basically just having a place to just relax, take a beat, and enjoy some scenery and ambiance. I think that is something about this park that I do enjoy. So some of these things, like I agree, the app, Battle of the Ministry, virtual lines, like those things need to be improved. I'm not going to hold out hope that those things are going to be improved by May 22nd. I guess I'll put it that way. I think eventually they will get all that figured out. It may be within 6 months, a year and a half, like whatever that timeline is, they will get it figured out. I mean, you look at Hagrid's, it had its issues when that ride opened, and they got that. For the most part, it's a very reliable ride. So did Disney with Rise of the Resistance. So you have examples of rough starting for many rides and attractions. And Universal is kind of, new attractions and rides many times kind of start out on a rough foot. That is something in the early going that is going to be an issue, which many people may wait to go to this park until some of these are ironed out here. But like the stairs and some of these other things, I think are critiques of the park, but I don't think it would fall into things that you could fix by May 22nd. You're not going to be going and fix these stairs issues. You're not going to be able to fix the rides that go down during rain. Like that is just how this park is going to be, for better or for worse. That's just how it's going to be unless they decide to overhaul these lands and rides, which I don't see them doing other than just adding more things in this park to do. And hopefully the new additions that they add will be ones that won't go down whenever there's rain and things like that. But, overall, I like getting other viewpoints on Epic Universe. Obviously, I'm excited about this park. I've been a couple of times. I thoroughly enjoy it, but there are things to critique about it. I think most of this is pretty fair, and I think most people would agree that the biggest thing about this is the virtual line system and the potential not only on Battle of the Ministry and that ride capacity issue, but the potentiality of using virtual lines to enter these portals that Universal has talked about if they hit capacity. I think that's another thing that people are rightfully somewhat concerned about, because we don't really know how that would look or work. And I think getting into a land and having to use a virtual line system wouldn't leave a lot of people really happy about this. So from what I have heard, Universal is trying to get to a point with Battle at the Ministry where it doesn't need a virtual line and just can be a standby attraction. I don't know if they'll be able to do that by the end of this week, whenever they have shut this ride down for a week to presumably fix whatever issues are on that ride. But I have heard that is the goal there. So if they're able to do that, that would help things a lot, because I do think Battle at the Ministry and the virtual line system is the potential Achilles heel of this park. And I think if people weren't able to experience or even get a chance to ride it, a lot of people are going to walk away being pretty disappointed. So they're going to have to balance, guest satisfaction with how many people they let into the park. We don't know what the park capacity is. And I would say that is something that is an overall question mark on what is the park capacity here, because we went during the latest preview. There was around 8,000 people in the park that day. And it felt pretty crowded with 8,000 people, and they're going to have more than twice than that. And when this park opens, presumably whatever that, capacity is. And so I think legitimately the wait times and how this park will flow with that many people in there is a legitimate question/concern about this, that, I'm sure Universal is aware of and trying to figure out ways in which to, help with that. I think having more things to do in Celestial Park would be good as well, like more, Streetmosphere, things of that nature. Overall, again, for a brand new park opening in this time period with social media and things like that, it's a different challenge than it was, say, when Animal Kingdom opened, because it wasn't going to fall under the immediate scrutiny of what people thought in a given moment just right off the bat. At least being able to see that, unless you were just there in the park that day. But I think overall, it's a very enjoyable park. It has a lot of great elements to it. Universal has taken all the things they've learned from the Wizarding Worlds and applied this to an overall theme park. And I think in terms of that, it's a very well done thing. It just comes down to sort of the park operations, how things flow. Do they have enough team members trained up for a lot of these food locations, for, guiding guests around the park? A lot of these things, there are question marks about how this park will flow, because again, we'll be there opening day, so be able to report back on how the experience was and all that stuff. But I think some fair critiques here about Epic Universe, and we'll see how it goes once this park opens. We're going to find out very soon how big of a deal some of these things are, if they're able to get some of these issues fixed, and if they're not, how quickly do they resolve them. As we're now getting into the, presumably a major travel season of this summer for Orlando and Universal and Disney. So some unanswered questions we will probably soon have answers to. But overall, I enjoyed the perspective. I like seeing other points of view on this for people that have been to the park. And, like I said, many of the criticisms I do think are fair and something to think about if you're going to go to this park in general. But either way, though, that's going to be it, though, for this video. If you like this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel, as we do all this coverage here of Universal Studios, Epic Universe, Disney World, and pop culture. And let us know in the comments, what criticisms do you think are with Epic Universe, and are any of the ones that you think they can fix before this park opens? And until next time, we will see you in the parks.